Hi guys, this is your April vocab list, and the only people who are going to be doing this outside of class will be students who are going to Spain. So if you are going to Spain, then yes, you should be watching this from home or some computer as you take notes on your own. If you are not going to Spain, you're going to have time in class to watch this and to take the notes. So you do not need to watch it if you are going to be around during Spain. The quiz date is Tuesday, May 12th. That is the first day of Southern Utah, so those of you who are going to Southern Utah, don't worry, you will have plenty of time to take it before you go, but just so you know, it will be happening when you are in Southern Utah. We'll start out with vocab words, and all the vocabulary words come from Of Mice and Men. The first one is marginalize. This will be one of the most important words we'll talk about as we go through and read the book. This is a verb, and if you think about the margins of a piece of paper, that might help you remember it. So it means to confine to an outer limit or an edge, and it usually means socially, so you're kind of outcasted. Example in A Raisin in the Sun, residents of Clybourne Park tried to marginalize the youngers. They tried to keep them out, keep them on the edge, not allow them into their community. The second word is imperious. Imperious is an adjective, a descriptive word. It means having an arrogant or dominant attitude. Basically, somebody thinks they are better than somebody else. Example, the ruler's imperious attitude led to an uprising. The next word is monotonous. It is also an adjective, describes something, and it's something that is tedious or unvarying. It never changes, it's the same old thing, it's kind of boring. Example, this is true. If you find monthly vocab monotonous, don't worry. This is the last list. Next word, reticent. Reticent. This means quiet or restrained. It is another adjective. For example, the mourners at the funeral remained reticent. The next word, recumbent. It is also an adjective. It means lying down or in a position of rest, so it basically describes how something or someone is placed. Julia left school feeling sick and spent the rest of the day recumbent on the couch. The next word is morose. It is an adjective. It means gloomy or sullen. For example, many of Poe's poems and stories have a morose mood. Next is reprehensible. It is another adjective. It means deserving strong criticism or disapproval. For example, students can only be expelled for behavior considered reprehensible. The next word is pugnacious. Again, an adjective, and it means inclined to fight or argue easily. I always think of a little barking pug dog. For example, Walter and Benita both had pugnacious personalities. The next word is derision. This is a noun, it's a thing. So if you are making fun of something, derision is that thing you are doing to make fun of something or someone. So it is basically ridicule or mockery. And again, it's a thing, it's not a verb. Example, the bully's constant derision of other students earned him a suspension. Plaintive is the next one. It's an adjective. Now don't confuse it with plaintiff, which is a legal word, which is somebody who is involved in a court case. This is different, plaintive. It means mournful or expressing sorrow. It's very similar to morose, and the list will be broken up so that you won't have to worry about confusing those in the matching because they pretty much have the same definition. After losing the playoff game, the team members wore plaintive expressions. The next one is liniment. This is kind of an older word. It's a thing. It is like icy hot or Bengay for those of you who are athletes. It's like a hot and cold liquid. It's medicated and you put it on the skin to relieve muscle soreness. So this is just the older word. In the past, it was usually a variety of oils, and we're going to see this in Of Mice and Men. Example, the trainer applied liniment to the athlete's sore muscle. The next word, indignation. This is a thing. It's the anger that somebody feels when you experience something unjust, mean, undeserved. You don't think it's right. So indignation is the feeling you get when you experience something like that. For example, the student could not hide his indignation after being falsely accused of cheating. Commonly confused words. So we only have one set. This is actually a 10th grade set, but it's one that a lot of honors students ask me about. So I thought I would go over it now. You will probably learn it again next year, but you may run into it on the SAGE test or just in your own writing. So this set is affect and effect. Very commonly confused in adults and just everywhere in writing. So affect with an A is a verb. It means to produce a change or to influence in some way. It's only a verb, it's only an action. So for example, the warm weather affected Snow Basin's closing date. So it produced a change in Snow Basin's closing date, it influenced. So think A goes with A, affect and action. The next one is effect with an E. This is always a thing, a result. So you will see this a lot in science. The effect of the warm weather was that Snow Basin closed early. So if you look at the two examples, you can see the difference between the verb version with affect with an A versus the noun version. I will let you know in about 1% of situations in the field of psychology, affect can be a thing. You don't need to learn about that now, but if any of you guys go on to take psychology next year in AP classes or anything like that, affect is a thing in psychology, but it's not something you need to worry about right now. It's a very rare case that you're going to run into that. So this is a little practice. If you want to look at 1, 2, 3, and 4, pause the video and go through this and see how you do. You should pause it now because then I'll go on to the next slide. Here are the answers. 1, his father's death affected author Eli Wiesel greatly. 2, the snow did not have an effect on school today. 3, Mr. Mitchell was absent today, so he did not affect many students. And 4, most teachers hope they will have a positive effect on their students. So students who are going to Spain, if you have questions on this, we will have time to review it after you get home from Spain to make sure you don't have any questions. Next, the mini grammar tip. So I will be talking about this in Cornell style. You can decide if you want to use Cornell style or not. I've given you guys a Cornell sheet. The topic is parallel structure. You don't have to do Cornell style, but I will just warn you that this is one of the harder grammar tips for a lot of people. The essential question, how can parallel structure make sentences, especially longer sentences, clearer? So first, what is parallel structure? So parallel structure, if you think of two parallel lines, they're going in the same direction. They have the same type of pattern. Parallel structure is when you use patterns in your writing, and the reason why you do that is to give all of your ideas equal importance and also to make your sentence flow. I've used this with some of you guys when you're writing thesis statements. If you had very long, complicated thesis statements and it just didn't quite sound right and you weren't sure why, some of you, when I helped you with it, I told you, well, this is a parallel structure issue. So some of you may remember that. And then a lot of standardized test questions require you to notice that a sentence doesn't have parallel structure and change it so it is parallel. Not necessarily the SAGE test, but when you get to the ACT and SAT, they use this a lot. And sometimes teachers don't teach it. So it's really good to just know that this is something you should strive for. You should try to have parallel structure in your writing. So there's two ways you can have parallel structure. There's the word level and there's the phrase level. So we're going to start at the word level. So look at these three sentences and just notice how when you have a list, when you have repetition, you always want to strive to have the same types of words. This summer I went swimming, hiking, and running. So notice those all end in ing. That's the format of those. Jessica likes to swim, to hike, and to run. Again, you have this pattern of the word to, T-O, and then the verb, the action. Finally, I completed the assignment quickly, thoroughly, and accurately. So the word level is typically going to be within a list, and you're going to strive to have the same types of words, all adverbs or all verbs, or even all past tense versus a combo of past tense and present tense. So you're striving to make the same type of pattern with each item in the list. So here is an example of making sentences parallel at the word level. So the top example, this is not parallel. Please complete your report thoroughly, quickly, and in an accurate manner. So it's not really a bad sentence, and there's nothing technically wrong with it, but it just doesn't flow as well as it could. And the reason why is parallel structure. And that's what happens in a lot of thesis statements that don't tend to flow. It's because there's not parallel structure. So you can see how I changed it. I noticed to already ended in ly, thoroughly and quickly. So the easiest way to just take in an accurate manner and then turn that into an ly word. So we just talked about the word level, and now we'll talk about at the phrase level. So both of these are longer sentences, and they show phrases, not just individual words. The coach suggested that the players should get a good night's sleep, should eat a hearty breakfast, and should stretch out before the game. The second one, I bought my brother a blue toy, a brown football, and a green t-shirt. So the pattern there is a, and then the color, and then the thing. So these are good parallel structure sentences where that pattern's repeated. Now this shows you the difference between not parallel at the phrase level versus parallel. So the non-parallel example, the dictionary can be used to look up parts of speech, to find correct pronunciations, and for looking up definitions of words. So as you take a look at the bad sentence, the non-parallel, the third item, for looking up definitions of words. It doesn't go with the pattern, and that makes the whole sentence sound wrong in some way. So, to make it better, you want to repeat that to and then the verb. So the revision is the dictionary can be used to look up parts of speech, to find correct pronunciations, to see example sentences, and to look up definitions. So just a final thought, you want to try to use parallel structure whenever possible when you have lists, and it can be especially helpful when writing complicated thesis statements. When you are taking standardized tests, if you can't figure out what's wrong with something, but it's giving you a question that is asking you what's wrong with the sentence, you might want to look at parallel structure and think about, is that what's wrong? It's not always obvious, and it's not something as easy as a commonly confused word, but in many cases that will be the problem, is a parallel structure issue. So if you're using Cornell-style notes, this is your chance to write a summary for those notes. And then you can put all of the notes in tab 2. Spain people, when you come back, we'll do a little bit more practice, and we have plenty of time until the vocab quiz that is actually taking place after our SAGE testing.